I'm here with Scott Duncan, CEO of Enterlines. Scott, thanks a lot for taking a few minutes out to talk to us.
Appreciate it.
I just wanted to start out, I was able to catch most of your presentation, really enjoyed it, and one thing that really caught my attention, you said that Enterlines is the last mile in building energy efficiency.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So there's a lot of companies out there, like the big aggregators and demand response aggregators and stuff like that. They will provide a signal to a building, but once it gets to the building, there's nothing that happens. It has to be a manual script. Somebody has to do something. And what we've found, and what they found as well, is that that doesn't work. You can't have manual intervention being in control of something that could take 2 hours, and it could be 20 times a year. You can't take somebody away from their job 2 hours a day for 20 days out of the year. You just can't do it. So we have all the the connectivity from our little computer box into the existing building DDC system. It's all fully automated, so if you're doing energy efficiency, obviously energy efficiency is minute by minute, right? It happens real time. And then the demand response is when an event happens, you have to do something.
Right.
So we have code that actually takes a signal from somebody, whether it's a ramp up or a ramp down, so we can actually, like the solar hit in the morning is terrible on the grid. Right? It's terrible. You get all this power coming on, the generators can't ramp down fast enough, so they have to ground power. They actually put power into the ground, wasting all that power. So we can actually ramp our loads up in the morning to absorb some of that power, and then in the afternoon, when they don't have enough power, we can ramp the loads back down. And all of that is behind the meter, it's fully automatic, set it and forget it. How much do you want to reduce? Punch it in, walk away.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also talked about comfort being one of the main drivers for your customers, you know, or their tenants, and sort of the thing that stands between them staying in a building or deciding to leave. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So comfort is the most important thing in a building. We had a client recently, they have a 400,000 square foot building. They had a 100,000 square foot tenant whose lease was up and they were ready to move because they were not comfortable. And that's a $3.6 million a year lease.
Wow.
Okay. The energy bill on that building was about $1 million a year. So 1/4 of the building provides $3.6 million of revenue versus the utility bill being $1 million. So we put our stuff in, and again, being comfort focused, within a week, the chief engineer had been getting 5 calls a day from this lady telling about how terrible the air conditioning was for their 4 floors out of the building. And within a week after putting it in, the comfort calls went away. He went up there and he was like, what happened? He goes, the lady was like, whatever you did, it works great. And within about a month and a half, they stopped searching for a new building. So that saved them $3.6 million. So that's just how important, that's 1 year. That's how important comfort is to a building owner. And on the productivity side of it, which is a whole other deal, a 1% improvement in productivity will typically eclipse the entire utility bill, which is 6 minutes a day. If you have people complaining about the comfort 6 minutes a day, that's a 1% deal, right? That doesn't take long to eat up 6 minutes of being uncomfortable. So that's way more important. The comfort and productivity is way more important than the utility bill itself. Obviously you want to save as much as you can, but the main driver is economics, which is comfort and productivity.
Right. Now, 60%, that's the statistic you gave in your presentation when you talked about the energy savings, or at least the energy savings now for the U.S. Navy for the project you were working on with them. Yeah. Can you talk a little more about that? How did you achieve that number?
Magic. No, so that was a combination of new equipment, which saved about 12% of the energy. You saw that on the slide, right? Saved about 12%. It was a new variable speed drive chiller, variable speed drives on pumps, rebuilding a cooling tower, heat rejection system, and then putting our LOBOS, load-based optimization system logic into the existing system. And as Aaron Williams mentioned with the Irvine company, we have what they call thermal flywheel sequences of operation. So we will actually shut down the cooling plant and just circulate the cold water in the building and use that instead of running your chiller very inefficiently at low loads. We use the energy stored in the loop to cool the building for 5 or 6 or 7 hours sometimes before you have to restart the chiller. So just changes like that, just common sense type stuff that doesn't really happen very often.
So I wanted to ask you, we recently interviewed Paul DiMartini from Newport Consulting, used to be at SoCal Edison. He talks a lot about a deeper engagement with customers, and I think he's talking a lot about on the consumer level, but I'm curious to get your perspective on how much social media and digital tools are helping to have better communication with your customers, or better communication with their end customer, whether it's a tenant or someone else who's maintaining a space in the
Irvine
building.
Company is a good, showcase for that. They announce, like when we're going to have a demand response event, they will put out placards and signs and send emails to people and just communicate that way and say, you know what, tomorrow it's going to be a hot day in Southern California, there's a grid issue, we want you to be able to help with that. So I'm not really the guy that does that kind of stuff, so more of a client type situation than me, yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask, I recently read a study about there's a possibility of, there was a study done that about 18 million apartments, condos, and other dwellings in buildings represent about nearly $22 billion a year in potential energy costs that could be saved for the residents if existing best energy utility practices are implemented. And there was another study that showed that at a whole, it could be $3.4 billion a year benefit and increased energy savings. I heard you throw out $5 billion in total energy savings. What do you think the ceiling is in terms of potential in multifamily building or commercial buildings?
Yeah, in commercial buildings is more of our stuff. We're mainly in the 100,000 square foot and up, although we do have a pilot project with the Irvine Company in a 53,000 square foot building. But in the 100,000 square foot and up, there's some big savings. A lot of it, like we say, the study indicated that we had commissioned indicated about $5 billion a year, the equivalent of about 21 nuclear power plants. So I mean, there's some big savings out there, and it's just because the way things are operated, like with our stuff, we have self-tuning loops built into it. The operators can adjust everything if they want to. If they don't, the self-tuning loops take care of it. So it's always commissioning itself. It's always tuning itself up on an individual floor-by-floor basis, because every floor is treated differently from every other floor.
Right. Yeah, I remember. I think you said each floor has its own personality.
Each floor has its own personality. Some floors like it warm. Some floors like a lot of air movement. Some floors like it, very quiet. So different people have different criteria for what's comfortable in their mind. So I call it, the perceived air conditioning, perceived comfort, right? One person is comfortable at 72 degrees and breezy. One person is freezing their little tail off at 75 and breezy. So every floor has a little bit different personality. Yeah.